Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to our brain friendly channel. And it is the afternoon in Australia. I believe it's the morning for Turkey. And wherever you might be in the world, we want to really welcome you to learn more about leadership and the brain and how these two things interrelate when it comes to the effectiveness of a leader. So, for anyone who is listening to this session, we invite you to explore our website aboutmybrain.com and find out if some of the things we offer are for you. And I believe that leadership is essential for today's world now more than ever. And if we are better prepared to understand how our brain works and how we can improve our own leadership, our personal leadership, we are going to have a better world. So welcome to our special Dilek Faka from Istanbul. And I have met Dilek a number of years ago in Madrid. And I was running a certification for the iPhone Your Leader methodology. And I was amazed by Dilek's insights into what makes a leader effective. So today we are going to be talking about this and a couple of things about Dilek. In terms of her background, she started her working life in banking in the finance world, and she's been around in the business world for more than 20 years, I believe. And also, she's also a coach, an executive coach, because she loves to help leaders make their way to, the places where they want to go. And she's also heading the Dale Carnegie Institute in Turkey, besides being a board member for Dale Carnegie in the Netherlands and Turkey. So welcome and thank you for being with us today. How are you, Dilek?
Thank you, Silvia. What an inspiring introduction. It's very privileged for me to be here with you today. And thank you for your all good said words. It was great for me to meet you in Madrid, and really it's opened a new perspective for myself in terms of leadership and in terms of leadership training. And as you said, I have been in business life more than 20 is less, like 30 years as of today. And I just, after graduating from university, I started to work in banking. So banking was very popular these times. So I started with a bank with a management trainee program. Now, when I look back to this career start, I find myself very, lucky. Because in banking you meet a lot of companies, you meet a lot of industries, and in terms of different businesses to be run, different dynamics, and with the different businesses you see a different leaders, a very spectrum of different leaders, good ones, bad ones, average ones, superior ones. It took a little bit time for reflection, of course, but this helped me all in the second part of my career, which is in helping people to transform themselves. This period of my career started with Dale Carnegie. Again, I was very lucky to have it with Dale Carnegie. And for until that time, I have only read the books of Dale Carnegie. And then I started as a trainer and a coach, of course, after a long period of time of certification. And then I became a trainer, and 2 years time in Turkey operation, I was responsible for leading the team in Turkey. And for the last 10 years, this is what I am doing. And the Carnegie Turkey is a quite well known and solid company that has been operating in Turkey for more than 20 years. We are a team of approximately 30 people. We have headquarters in Istanbul, but we are giving service to all of the Turkey. And thanks to global presence of the Carnegie, we are doing business internationally as well. We have a fantastic team, and we have, I believe, that the best trainers in Turkey, best coaches. and all of them are better than me, believe me, because they are practicing it better than me. I'm just trying to help them perform better each day. And I am a
That
mom
sounds
of
awesome.
22
Yes.
year old young
Of
man.
course. Oh, okay. That teaches us a lot of things, isn't it?
Oh, my best lesson in the world.
So I remember reading many, many years ago, How to Win Friends and Influence People by Dale Carnegie. And this is one of the books that you don't forget. Whatever he wrote in that book 100 years ago, some of the principles are still relevant. So why don't you share with us some of the principles in this book? Because I can hardly remember them. So please.
Sure, of course. And the first principle is don't criticize, condemn, or complain. The second principle is give honest, sincere appreciation. The third principle is arouse an eager in others' life person. Become genuinely interested in other person. Smile is the fifth principle. We have 30 principles. Do you want me to go on
Yeah, a few
all of
more, a
them?
few more.
And one thing that I like is remember that a person's name is the loveliest words that is to me in his language or her language. So
Yes.
be a good listener and encourage people to talk more about themselves.
Mm.
Make people feel valuable and do it sincerely. These are the ones
Yeah.
that he has put forward like about
Yeah.
a
It's,
100 years ago. So this is fantastic. There was
yeah.
no EEG. There was no any research. These kinds of things. So he just
He knew.
watched. Yeah,
Yes.
yeah, he knew that. That's
Well,
right.
we can learn so much by observation, through observation. And unfortunately, we are living such busy lives, looking more down than up, that we are getting it wrong when it comes to influencing people. I get a lot
Yeah.
of, requests and questions around what's the best way to influence people. And I mean, these principles are current. If you smile, you're activating the mirror neuron system of the other person, and the person is going to smile back. And if you haven't tried this yet, try it. I don't think that people will look at you grumpy unless they have some kind of illness. But if you smile, people will smile back. And hello,
That's
Maite
right.
Crespo from Spain. She's listening to us, so it's great to have you there. And Wyatt McCain, welcome to our
Hello.
program. And the other thing is, we have talked for so many years about performance feedback. And I think that whoever provides performance feedback, they are forgetting about the number one thing, which is appreciate people's strengths and,
Yes.
compliment them. For some strange reason, when people are under stress, they tend to look at the faults of others rather than, complimenting and really appreciating what people have, that they can bring to the table, or they bring to the company. So how has neuroscience changed you in terms of understanding the brain more and applying, how the brain functions to these principles of Dale Carnegie? Tell us a little bit more what you did with this.
Sure, with pleasure. We have a very important methodology in the Carnegie, which is who you are defines what you do and what you get. So, if you want to change what you get in the final part, you don't. It's not enough to change your behaviors, but you have to change who you are. So we are for sustainability and for doing it continuously. So for a performance change, you have to change your behaviors, but you have to have an emotional change as well. So in our trainings, we always try to do the emotional transformation, which means changing your beliefs, changing your emotions, changing your ideas, not only changing the behavior, not only changing your knowledge, but make a deep change in these areas. it's not very easy sometimes to do it with the existing tools. Science, neuroscience is actually helping there very much because it is solid. It is just a fact. I mean, it shows what happens in your brain when you behave in a particular way. And so as you said, the mirror neurons are a reality. So if you don't smile, what you cause in the others' ideas is very known. So if you talk about, for example, the social triggers and the threat zone and the reward zone, and how what happens with a person in the threat zone and what happens in a person's reward zone, then it is very easy to tell what to do in order to make people into the reward zone. So this helped a lot in terms of emotional change and emotional transformation that we were trying to do in our trainings. But I guess they have to be very limited knowledge because everyone is not very much interested as I do and you do. So it has to be very practical and very, understandable and at an specific amount
The
of
small,
the period.
specific and
Yes,
small
small,
chunks.
small
Yes, I
bites.
mean,
That's right.
the one of the biggest breakthroughs of neuroscience has been the discovery of neuroplasticity, the fact that our brain changes all the time, adapts to new circumstances. Even if we don't think we are adapting, the brain changes and adapts.
Yeah.
There are plenty of examples around the world of what's happening when people lose their homes and they have to go and live somewhere else. They don't even know where they're going to end. And it is a very painful thing that activates the threat response. But somehow the brain finds its own way and people adapt. Isn't that right?
That's correct. And neuroplasticity, I guess, gives a hope to people in terms of transformation because we usually hear in our sessions, coaching or training sessions, I'm like this. How can I change after this age? No, you can change. It's possible,
Yes.
but there are
Yes.
ways to do it.
I always share this story of my mom, who is now 92. And a few years ago, she wanted to send me an email, and she has never touched a computer before. And people used to say, "You're not going to get it. You belong to the veteran generation." But she has the will to develop herself even at an older age. And she went to classes, computing classes. And after a year of going 3 times a week, one day I received an email from her. So even
Perfect.
at an old age, we grow new cells, we can make new
Yes.
connections, but it's the willingness to want to want to embrace what's new and what's different and what's novel. And I don't think we can survive this continuous change that we are experiencing in the world without being adaptable and flexible. So how do you see the biggest challenges now in the companies that you work for? What are leaders talking about at the moment?
Okay. And I think for the last 10 years or 20 years were not easy. I mean, there was always constant change that was challenging the business. But today, I guess the problem is a little bit hectic in terms of, I think the business has to balance different and opposing forces and priorities at the same time. What I mean, for example, due to pandemic, many business lost their growth rates and turnovers dropped. So they have to grow these days. But growing and keeping up with the KPIs of the current days world needs contradicts with the requirement of transformation for the next coming years because you have to invest for innovation, you have to invest for your team, you have to invest for your products, and these are all two contradicting issues that business have to balance. And for example, the second example for that is a business have now, especially the CEOs have now a lot of stakeholders because the business is so interconnected with each other, and the desires and the requirements of these stakeholders are very different. Um, eh, think about a new generation, either in terms of customers or employees. They are challenging the current values of organizations. They are looking for values that are resonating for them. They are looking for more diversity and inclusion. They are looking for purposeful and meaningful work. Uh, and at the same time, the communities and the customers are looking for different purpose resonation with themselves at a very speedy delivery rates with incomprehensible desires, and communities look for different sensitivities like environmental issues, climate issues. So business have to take all of these challenging problems together, and it's not very easy for the senior level to take all these issues together at the level of this unclarity and uncertainty, because there
Yeah.
is a lot of uncertainty. And again, thanks to pandemic, all business models are changing. It is very, I mean, all the research say that people are not going back to offices at 100%. So there will be hybrid working environment.
Yes.
So retaining and attaining, attracting new talent is a very important issue. One of the HR directors that I respect very much in the in Turkish market, a big company's HR director told me that I have never told that recruitment will be my top concern for the next 2 years. So it is certain that the workforce is very movable now, and it's very difficult to attract the new ones necessary workforce for companies. For example, in IT industry in Turkey, there is a very big gap because everyone from his computer is working for Australia, for example. So
Mm, mm.
there is a big competition there, and the companies have to be much, much more better and offer new things to every stakeholder.
Yes, globalization and companies being able to work online with remote workers definitely presents a challenge that is not an easy one to solve. So when we talk about reskilling or upskilling people, particularly CEOs, and for CEOs to understand the importance of leadership development, for example, what do you recommend to them? What do you say to them? Because I find that when people are under the pump and they need to, concern themselves more with revenue, they drop leadership development. They don't think it's a necessary thing to be doing now that we are concerned about increasing turnover or revenue. So, what do you say to them?
Um, Actually, they approach us with a need. We are of course telling through webinars how effective, leadership results in the business results. I mean, how it affects the turnover rates, how it affects the profitability. There's a lot of say it research done by Gallup or Dale Carnegie itself showing that effective leadership leading into engagement of the people leads to higher profitability. Top quartile versus the lowest profile actually differences in like 25 to 30% in terms of effectiveness. So it is, for example, an effect of 66% in well-being. So they all know this. There is no problem with it. The knowledge is there, but the thing is, it is not very easy for them to change their practices if it comes to themselves. So they have no problem with the change of the other people, but if they have to change themselves, the problem is really there. For example, you make a problem, they have no problem with the front line, with management, leadership effectiveness, because as the research shows, uh, there is a gap there. They see it, but they cannot make usually the relatedness between their own leadership efficiency and the other part of the efficiency. So our real problem is there. We usually do 360s or one-to-one coaching. So it helps us to see, to show them how they feel about them, and how people see them may make a great difference.
Mm.
This is usually the issue that the tool that we use prior
Yeah.
to trainings.
Yeah.
We say, let's see what they think
Yeah.
about you, and then
Yeah.
go after it.
Yes. And of course, perception is perception. It's never the truth. And everybody has a
Yeah.
different perception about someone else. And you can't please everybody. Leadership is really, it's an art, and it's very challenging because we can't expect everybody to follow us. There will be others that may oppose what we say or what we want to do. And it's a very delicate dance between the leader and the followers. So definitely, I am a firm believer that 360 assessment tools is the one thing that can help a person reflect. Because most people do not like direct feedback. I wish we could give direct feedback and people would accept it, but it doesn't work. It's like, between couples, what happens? You tell your partner
Yeah.
something and, they don't accept it, or very few people have the level of insight and a reflective mind that, allows for that direct feedback to occur, to take place. So you mentioned the word engagement, and what are the drivers of engagement in an organization? What do you see the roots of engagement to be?
Sure. The Carnegie has been conducting studies and researches for the consecutive last 6 years about engagement. And before, when you invited me to this webinar, I read your book, a compact book about engagement. So I,
Mhm.
I, I wanted to, compare the findings of our research and your what you tell in the book, which is completely,
Align.
aligned. Yes,
Mm.
then Carnegie, and I am a strong believer of it, is engagement is all about emotions. So Dale Carnegie made a research of emotions, which emotions accelerate engagement,
Engagement.
and
Okay.
found out five, important emotions that have effectiveness in the engagement concept. And the important thing is these five emotions, when work together, the sequence of it is very important. I mean, you have to have people these emotions in a concrete sequence so that it leads to engagement. One is, for example, you have to feel valued. If you feel valued with your organization, by your couple, by your boss, whatever it is, manager, you feel confident. So being valued and confident together leads to inspiration. So once you are inspired, you are enthusiastic and you are happy what you are doing, and because you are confident that you are using your strengths and you can deliver some value to what you are doing, what you are business. So you feel empowered, and when you feel empowered, you feel yourself accountable, you can take risks, you can make decisions, you can do more than what is expected from you, you can use your initiatives. So and when you are empowered and when you want to do more than expected than you from you, then it is leading to engagement. So the cycle of engagement in terms of the Carnegie research is like this. How it sounds to you?
It sounds fantastic. And I think that starting with every human being likes to be acknowledged and valued and know that they are contributing to something. So it's interesting how to, when a person applies for a job, you get all sorts of questions about what's important to you. But then once you get the role, very rarely the manager sits down with the employee to uncover what was talked about in the recruitment
Yeah.
interview. And I have found that quite fascinating. It's almost like you have all these people working for you or working for your company or your team, and you forget that the brain changes all the time and people need that continuous validation of your efforts are important, your presence here is marking a difference. And we
Yeah.
don't use these appreciation statements to make sure that the emotion of that person is up rather than down. And if you look at companies and what happens to an employee a year down the track, if they don't have the right leader or team leader or manager or senior leader, their enthusiasm goes out of the window. And that is when, people start to complete engagement surveys and
Yes.
companies start to see, well, we have a 60% engagement, or we have a lower engagement, or we have a
What does
70%.
it mean?
Exactly. But yes, completing the engagement surveys is useful, but it's useful providing that you do something with the results. Very few companies I know that they have 100% of engagement. And even though our emotions vary, of course, according to our personal circumstances and work circumstances, we need to continuously upgrade and reskill and upskill and maintain that motivation in people. Otherwise, there's no engagement and people look for another job very, very quickly.
I absolutely agree with you. For example, one of the areas that we work with our customers is after engagement surveys. HR gets the engagement result, and someone, especially in the holding company at the seniority level, or if it is an international company, the headquarters outside of EMEA world, as what are these, and you have to improve that. So the HR calls us and say, let's do together, this is very work together, this is very good up until now. But it has to be uh, it needs a mindset shift. I mean, first of all, it's not a one shot thing. The reasons that take you down or up may not be valid for the coming near years. So every day or every 2 years, what seconds you are doing it, you have to really understand the real story behind the numbers. But we usually skip that page. And we think that it's just like a one shot business or actions to be taken very close to these survey dates. For example, I remember director, factory director, very big, well known company, international company, said that we even gave breakfasts to our say it workers, like cookies, everything, juices, but you see the rates are very low. And it was very dramatic for me to hear this, and I asked, have you ever one day took the bag of yours, gone into the plant and had a breakfast with them? I said,
Yes,
no, I didn't. So this is what makes engagement actually. So
exactly.
because it is emotional attachment that you feel for your manager, feel for your work, and for your company.
That's right.
They get the actions, plans, they collect them, but nothing happens until the second year. So, of course, there are some very companies that are doing it very well and taking, all necessary precautions. But usually, it has been like this. Otherwise, we would have solved it. It could not
Yes,
have been a very big issue.
yes. I have a comment from Raymond L. Curry. Leadership leads to engagement, engagement leads to productivity, and productivity leads to profitability. So, thank you, Raymond, for
Absolutely.
your contribution. And that is so true. We cannot just talk about profitability or productivity without nurturing the people who produce or who bring, do the work and bring the income. It's there's a heart, there's a mind, there's a gut, there's a nervous system, there's a biology behind every person that works for a company. And the moment leaders forget about this, we are going down the drain, and you can only push people so much. So from a perspective of having a great culture, leadership is the quintessential quality that we need to be nurturing and taking care of.
Yes. Uh, I mean, I had read a sentence. I don't know who said this, but the culture of a company is either the footprints of the current CEO or the previous one. So we are usually complaining about the culture of the company, but we should not forget that they are reflecting the C-suite seniority level of the company. So I think leadership effectiveness is very important in terms of setting these emotions that I have told a few minutes ago, and preparing the environment and the climate that these emotions nurture. And in the senior leaders have the most impact and the
Yeah,
capability and the authority
yeah,
to implement these systems, tools, and environment within the organization. And the results show, in terms of engagement, that people resonates engagement or their feelings with the feelings that they have with their immediate manager, they have with their senior manager, trust in their senior manager, and their pride from the brand. So all three areas are under control of senior leadership. So this is very important, how the senior leaders in the organization or how they see leadership and what they do, what their priorities are in order to have an engaged workforce.
yes, that's right. And one of the things that we need to understand when it comes to creating emotions in others is that brain states are contagious. So if I'm having a great day and I am happy, it's very likely that when I walk into my office, people are going to feel that, and they are going to be perhaps a little happier than what they were before. However, when I am upset or I'm grumpy or I had a problem down in the road when I was driving to work, people can pick up on that energy, even if I, try to disguise my emotions, and the environment will not be the same. So we may think that people don't pick up on our emotional state, but the brain does. The brain of the people does. So it's very important to watch, how we come prepared to work. That's why when you spoke about being confident and being centered, it's such an important skill to have emotional management. How do you work with people in that realm, helping people develop this emotional self-management? Because I think it's crucial.
Yes, of course. I mean, there is an announcement in the airplanes. You may recall. First, put in terms of emergency. Please first put the oxygen mask into yourself and to the others. Because in order to, after all, because as a leader, the same thing is valid. I mean, a leader first of all has to be aware of his or her impact on the other people, as you told us. So usually they are not so much aware of their own feelings, so their own emotions. So once they try to start to find out what their emotions are, what their values are, and how their behaviors and decisions are interrelated with their emotions, priorities, and values, they start to find out the connection between these two. And once people themselves start this journey to be more aware of themselves, themselves as a whole, then their perception, their view for the other people starts to enlarge. And they have no problem with dealing with themselves. Everybody likes to talk about their problems, talk about their values. So, of course, using coaching tools and some other tools that we have in hand, we start with to help them and support them to find what their life purpose is. Very interestingly, for example, most majority of the leaders have not thought about their life purpose, leadership purpose. So when they find this leadership purpose related to their values, a very great scene is opening in front of them. So the first steps that we take with them is doing this exercise and trying to have them this awareness in terms of their leadership, because they help them to understand why they have done this previously in that way, and what are the consequences of these choices.
Yeah. Yeah, it's such an important tool to be able to coach others, even if you're in a management position, to elicit emotions, to help people understand their own emotions. Some people are completely unaware of how they are feeling at a particular moment in time, and sometimes their brain is not wired that way, or they have never been asked or nurtured in that way. So coaching as a tool for leaders is also of high significance, I would say.
Yeah, and neuroscience findings helps there as well. For example, there are still some leaders saying that professional approach requires leaving the emotions at the front of the door. So,
Yeah,
but science says that this is
exactly.
not impossible. This is impossible. I mean, we are
No,
not creatures of logic, but we are creatures of emotions, as they Carnegie put forward. So you have to talk to their emotions if you want to inspire and move people. And if you give some scientific research studies for especially the people who admire knowledge, science, and these kinds of things, it's easier to convince them.
that's right. And just to provide a couple of examples, we know now that oxytocin is also
Oh,
known as the love chemical, and it gets generated when we hug someone, when we pat a pet, when we give a compliment to someone, when we smile. So if you think about one of the principles of Dale Carnegie, just by smiling, you are generating oxytocin in your body, but also in the body of the person who you are
yeah.
smiling to. And that is a mechanism for collaboration. So
That's
if
right.
we get into a team meeting and you are upset and angry and grumpy, you're going to have the opposite effect to what you want, which is people collaborating together. And understanding all these hundreds of chemicals that are in our brains and bodies can really shed a light into why human beings do the things they do, and when they are not doing certain things, how to forgive them, understand them, and perhaps coach them to learn more about themselves. I think it's so
Yes.
important, isn't it?
Yes, it is. For example, we are doing team coaching sessions with teams. This can be either a team with a definite, specific function, for example, marketing team of a company, or we are doing it for the executive team, a senior suite team for the CEO and the N minus one, their direct reports. Um, and we use a model there with the Lancioni model, as you may know, and
Yeah.
we are starting to work with trust, because trust is the major requirement of an effective team to function well, and we do their vulnerability exercises, and we want people to tell about the times that they really sucked up. I mean, they really, when there was a big failure, or when they felt themselves very, inadequate. And usually the facilitator or the coach starts with his own story, and the leader follows it. And we usually give a tip to the leader before the session to tell really a stunning and touching story to share with his team. And you can feel the oxytocin after he or she
Yes.
tells this story and
Yes.
puts her or his vulnerability.
Yes.
And majority of the other participants talking after the leader says in these sessions, I would tell something different before I heard my manager, but now I changed my mind and I'm telling this now. So this is how actually they affect with their words and approach, their stories, all the team. So
Yeah,
as you said,
I
goes in.
that's so good, so good. And I just want to read a phrase of Wyatt McCain talking about emotional fitness, and that's such a great combination of words, because before we used to judge the concept or the word emotions as something that indicates weakness, when in reality it is a strength to know your emotions and to manage them, and to learn about the emotions of others, and to manage them as well in order to influence people towards a vision that you may have or the company has. It is impossible to lead effectively, and this is the topic of today. How do we lead effectively without emotional management? And I was reading an article, Dilek, from a new book called Jerks at Work by an American author called Tessa West. And she talks about the different characteristics of people. We have the people who are manipulators in the workplace, and those who are the free riders, and the ones that are the micromanagers. She gives out 9 characteristics, different characteristics. And when we understand how the brain works in the way we understand it today, it's so easy to know or to discern that some of these behaviors that end up hurting people are some kind of brain dysfunction at some level that we don't see, but they exist. They are there in people's brains. So emotional management or emotional fitness is very important if your brain is working well for you to develop. If your brain is not working that well, it may be a bit harder. You may need to do a few more sessions with coaches or therapists to align your brain back again. And in some cases it's not possible, but in many cases it's possible. But self-awareness is at the core of what we need to do as leaders to be more effective. And I'm not sure what your experience is in terms of how many of these leaders end up changing some of these behaviors. Would you like to comment on that?
Sure. I mean, I think once they realize that and understand that, it gives harm to themselves and to their family, as well as their employees, the change starts more, easily. Because I realize that, for example, I usually recommend the people I coach, just try this with your kids. If you get good result or good feedback from them, if you see a change, then do it on the employee side. Because it is the same thing. It is the same approach. I mean, if you are talking about smiling, smile to your kids and smile to your family, or acknowledge and give sincere appreciation to them. So and observe what's happening, and they are very willing to do this at home before doing it at work. I don't know if it is more valuable to them, or it is more safe for them to make try new things. Uh, but once they get aware of the, if they believe they need it, and if it is going to give them a result, they try it with small pieces. But we see great changes as well. Sometimes we don't. I mean, sometimes we don't. So this is how I think it's interrelated with how much this person wants to do it,
That's right.
and what is his or her expectation for the
Mm,
coming years from leadership, and what
yeah,
is or her purpose he understand from leadership is. So if it is only the power, exercising power, and satisfying himself with the power itself, because we have some people like this, as you said, as jerks. Actually, leadership is not for this kind of people. So
mm,
this is very interesting. But
yeah,
if they are in a threat zone themselves, they usually understand that they put the other people in the threat zone as well.
mm,
So they limit the integration of their brain, their own brains, and their people's brains as well, to perform in a required way that that the business expects from the leaders.
that's right. I was
Sorry.
watching an interview with Elon Musk, and the person who was interviewing him was talking about him and his purpose in life. And one thing that he said very clearly is that as someone who runs businesses and does things beyond what an average person would do, his main concept, the main concept that he holds in his mind is that he wants to see a better world. He wants to see people having hope about the future rather than being worried about the problems, because we have always have problems to overcome, and situations and wars and all sorts of things. And I don't think they will ever stop. But if we have leaders who can think beyond the problems and can expand their minds to think about the future and what they could do better, we will all be in a better position as societies. We have to offer this sense of hope to people, which is a different type of emotion. So people wake up in the morning and can execute on their purpose and also be better contributors to society. how do we work with leaders to say the right things and to use the right words to elicit more hope in people? What would be your advice?
Uh, our advice is very prescriptive in the Carnegie principles. Actually, if they can do it, these 30 principles, it is very practical to do it. They are not very difficult things, but I think it's a kind of a reconsideration before every behavior and before every choice. First of all, I think we are trying to improve their opportunities and choices. Let's say, because they sometimes see a very limited way of doing things. So if you can just make the view wider and see there is a way of doing this in an other way, uh, which will lead you to get the same result plus on ads. And they try to they try to use these principles every day more. And what we do very easily is, for example, we appreciate and acknowledge the leader itself as a coach. And then but it has to be real. I mean, it should not be fake. I mean, it has to be something that everybody is aware, he is aware, and maybe he is not aware but you are aware, which is much more valuable. Then
Yes.
his mouth starts to get relaxed. His You can read the good emotions from his feelings, and then we say, how do you feel now? What you feel? What made you to that state of emotions? And why do you think that other people would think it differently? It is the same mechanism. So we
Mm.
always try to have them feel it with one-on-one coaching, with themselves, experience it, and then implement it. But as I say, it is very difficult to put these things on their priorities. We
Yes.
are not fighting for it's not on their daily priorities, routines. But if we can change the perception that they can do their priorities in a different way, it works. This is at
Yes.
least my experience.
Yes, great. Yes, great advice. So today, time has gone so quickly, Dilek, and I don't talk with normally with people that are of a particular institute and with principles that have been around for such a long time. So you are
Yes.
kind of an exception when
Thank
it
you.
comes to teaching these very simple concepts, but people don't use them. They forget about them. Can you go through the list that you mentioned at the beginning again, in case some people miss out on them? Because I think they are so important to remember. So tell us
Sure.
a few of the principles again.
Okay, the first nine principles that I'm going to tell you now is for conveying trust in you. We call it trust principles, which
Okay.
is the first one: don't criticize, condemn, or complain. Which means
Uh-huh.
that when you criticize, condemn, and complain, at least if you start say it, conversation with any of these ones, you particularly put people into threat zone, so they go into the a defensive mood, which will
Got
not
it.
work. The second thing is give honest appreciation and sincere appreciation, which means again then ignites the reward circuits in our brain, and which is makes it very easy to collaborate and convince and lead the way you want. And the
Hmm.
third thing is arouse and eager want in other people. If you want them to do something, I mean, which means inspiration. I mean, because if you don't sell the idea and sell the task, what you want them to do, you have to arouse an eager. People has to want to do it, otherwise they won't do this.
Yes.
And the fourth one is begin or be genuinely interested in other people. When we talk together, for example, ask something about yourself. Give the talk about your values. Talk about your hobbies. If you want to make it, because people like to talk about themselves. So give the opportunity for them to express themselves. The fifth one is very easy: smile. And the sixth one is call them with their names. So because
Yeah,
everybody
I know.
likes to hear his or her name, and this is very important, I think, in terms of leadership. For example, one of my participants in a training room said that he did this in a production plant, and he heard the two ones speaking and telling to his friend, "Did you hear? He knows my name." So he was so inspired. So this is a way of affecting and inspiring people. Just learn their names and call it. Be a good listener, because we actually we affect people the way we listen more than we speak. And so be a good listener and ask questions so that they can tell them their selves. Leadership, in terms of leadership, it's very important. And talk in terms of their interest, not your own interest, but their interest. And behave the way that people think he is very valuable, as we talk in the emotions. So this is what Carnegie suggests to do
Suggest.
in terms of trustworthiness.
Okay, well, let's see if I listen to you correctly. And I'm smiling, and I just want to send you this compliment because you have been great. It has been great talking with you and to extract some of this wisdom that you have collected over the years and you're teaching to others to help them have, a better life or a more successful business as well. So I want to sincerely thank you for being with us today. And anyone who is around Turkey, reach out to Dilek because they have so much to offer when it comes to training leaders in the business place, in the workplace. So thank you so much, Dilek, for coming along. And when you think about training yourself or learning more about neuroscience and how it has a role in leadership in today's environments, don't hesitate to reach out because we firmly believe that better brains create better leaders, and we need this more than ever. So thank you so much, Dilek, for coming along.
Thank you. Thank you very much for the opportunity of being here. You are not only a quick learner, that you learn the important aspects of the principles, but I know from Madrid times and from getting the training from you, you are a great, inspiring people greatly. This is myself is a good example for this. You opened really a very important and valuable perspective for me in terms of my profession. So please accept my gratitude for this as well.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Okay, we'll see you in our next episode, and have a good afternoon, everybody. Thank you, Dilek, once again.
Thank you. Thank you all participants listening, and